Now, the fight for Mariupol has intensified. In the latest, Ukraine has rejected a deadline given by Russia for its forces to lay down their arms and surrender the city. On Sunday, Russia said that a terrible humanitarian catastrophe has developed in Mariupol and that it would open up humanitarian corridors if Ukraine agreed to lay down their arms. Ukraine has rejected the demand, saying there can be no question of any surrender and vowed to fight on. But Russia was right about the human catastrophe unfolding in the city. Mariupol has suffered some of the heaviest bombardment since the invasion began. On Sunday, an art school was bombed in the city, where about 400 people were taking shelter. President Zelensky denounced the bombing, saying that the Russian terror would be remembered for centuries to come.
They have committed against humanity.
In besieged Mariupol, the Russian Air Force dropped a bomb on an art school. People are using it as a hiding place from bombardments. There were no military positions there. There were about 400 people there, peaceful people, mostly women and children, and elderly people. They are now under rubble. For now, we don't know how many people have survived, but we do know that we will shoot down the pilot who dropped that bomb, like we have already shot down nearly 100 other mass murderers.
Now, the fight for Mariupol has intensified. In the latest, Ukraine has rejected a deadline that was given by Russia for its forces to lay down their arms and surrender the city. On Sunday, Russia had said that a terrible humanitarian catastrophe has developed in Mariupol and that it would open up humanitarian corridors only if Ukraine agreed to lay down their arms. Now, Ukraine has rejected this demand by Russia, saying that there can be no question of any surrender and have vowed to fight on. Now, at least 6 people have died in the city of Kiev after Russian forces shelled a shopping center on Sunday. A huge blast shook the city at the time of the attack, and fires could be seen blazing in the wreckage of a mall. The video of the blast was released by Ukraine's state emergency services. Rescue teams continue to look for survivors in the rubble. While Kiev has been hit by a series of strikes over the past week, Russia's advance on the capital has, however, largely stalled. Moscow's forces engaged in sporadic fighting northwest and east of the city, but have barely moved for 2 weeks. Ukrainian soldiers guarding key positions in Kiev on Sunday remain confident that victory would be theirs. The soldiers have even adopted a dog which helps the unit by barking as soon as it detects the sound of incoming artillery fire. Ukrainian soldiers guarding key positions in Kiev on Sunday remain confident that victory would be theirs. Now, the fight for Mariupol has intensified. In the latest, Ukraine has rejected a deadline given by Russia for its forces to lay down their arms and surrender this city. Now, for more on this, our correspondent John Bever joins us live from Latvia. Thanks for being with us, John. Ukraine has rejected Putin's ultimatum to surrender Mariupol, which the Ukrainian officials said would amount to a capitulation. Can we expect an increased Russian offensive in this besieged port city now?
Yeah, well, we heard this morning that the Ukrainian officials in Mariupol said they absolutely were rejecting this offer to evacuate the city. And the reason they've done that is because it also required the complete capitulation of their forces, which they said they were not willing to do to these foreign invaders. So we now find ourselves at a standoff. The situation in Mariupol, we are hearing, is incredibly difficult. We have reports of bodies being left on the street because it's simply too dangerous to conduct funerals. Certainly things very difficult there for the estimated hundreds of thousands who are still there. So this is something that the Ukrainians are desperately trying to resolve in terms of getting in humanitarian aid and some sort of evacuation, but they are not willing to surrender the city in order to enable that evacuation to happen. So all eyes now on what the next step will be for the Russian forces. It very much seems to be this sort of almost medieval style siege, where they have surrounded the city on all sides, and of course the sea to the south as well, and certainly the fighting and the shelling is expected to continue. Whether the Russians simply start to dig in and try and sort of starve them out, as it were, and I don't use those words lightly, then of course that might be something that goes on for many weeks. So it's whether Russia has got the patience for that, or if we are going to see a hugely increased military presence there in order to simply try and take the city by force. But certainly that will be no easy task.
Right. And John, the Russian bombs have hit targets across Ukraine overnight, killing at least 6 in Kiev and allegedly damaging a chemical plant in the north of the country, which is causing ammonia leakage. Do you get a sense of frustration setting in among the Russian forces, with most of the major cities still in Ukrainian hands?
Yes, certainly that frustration is something that we've been hearing about. We are, of course, broadcasting from here because of the rules that have been imposed in Moscow when it comes to talking about this invasion. And what we're hearing from people in Moscow is this potential sense of growing unease. Of course, the Kremlin is very much just pushing forwards and saying that everything is going to plan. But what many outside observers are saying is certainly this is not the possibly the easier task that Russia thought this would be. They have met fierce resistance. We've had a briefing this morning as well from the Ministry of Defence in the UK, who have warned that maybe the lack of Russian progress means they might just start to encircle these cities. We might even see it next with the Ukrainian capital, is what they're saying, and that we see this encirclement that we've seen elsewhere, and really that becomes the tactic going forward. But this is, of course, something that we are just going to have to see whether that develops. And as you say as well, we've heard about this ammonia leak. You have to remember Ukraine is a modern country. It's got all the facilities, of course, that many other major European countries have. So when the shells and the missiles start raining down, then of course there are going to be huge problems. And this potential, this actual ammonia leak that's happened is certainly one issue. We've heard warnings for people living in the area to start taking showers and breathe through damp towels. You know, it is a very, very difficult situation for all Ukrainians at the moment, and from a Russian military point of view, certainly this is not the easy task they hoped it would be, and it looks like this could go on for some time unless the Kremlin decides to ease off.
Right, John, thank you very much for all your valuable insights there and bringing us all the latest.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.